Congratulations, you're through the bulk of the material for Math 030. Before we move on to material for Math 060, I want to remind you to take a look at the written reviews. There should be a PDF file called 030.pdf. There are a lot more examples of the stuff that we just did in that last section. There's also a whole section on word problems, so check those out. The material that we're going to start with in our 060 section is percents. So the main thing to remember when you're talking about percents is that when you see a percentage, like say 35%, really what this means is 35 over 100, or 35 out of 100. So keeping that in mind, let's do a few things with percents. We could convert a percent to a decimal. So for example, let's take 35%. Now converting a percent to a decimal is really easy. All we have to do is take the decimal place from our percent and move it to the left 2 units. So we have a decimal right here after the 35. You don't see it, but it's there. And all we have to do is move that decimal 2 places to the left, and we get 0.35. Now keeping in mind what we talked about earlier, 35% equals 35 over 100. That's exactly what we did. We just divided 35 by 100. And you remember from dividing by factors of 10 that whenever you divide by a factor of 10, you move the decimal to the left. So we can actually do this the other way around as well. Say we have a decimal and we'd like to convert this into a percent. For example, I give you a decimal 0.2 or 2/10. Well, the way to convert this into a percent is just to go the other way around. It's pretty easy. All we have to do is take the decimal place, move it 2 units to the right. Tack a percentage sign on there, and you're finished. So it's not too hard. We can also convert fractions to percents. So let's talk about how we can do that. Let's say, for example, you're given a fraction 7/8, and we'd like to convert that into a percent. The first step in converting a fraction to a percent is converting this fraction to a decimal. So there's really an intermediate step. We convert our fraction to a decimal, and then we convert that decimal to a percent. So let's consider 7/8. If we're going to convert a fraction to a decimal, what we do is we write out 7/8 with a long division sign. Now we're not going to get very far if we just try to do long division with the 7 and the 8. But what you remember we can do is we can always add 0.000 to the end of our 7 whenever we like. We could add as many zeros as we want. I'll start with 3. And then what we can do is just divide divide decimals the way that we did in some of the previous videos. Take the decimal place, put it right above where it is in the dividend, and just do long division like you normally would. So, how many times does 8 go into 70? I believe the answer is 8. 8 times 8 is 64. We subtract that from 70. And then you just continue the long division like you normally would. 7, 56, 40, 5, 40. Oh, great. So this problem actually has an end to it. If we didn't get a remainder of 0 down here, what we could do is we could continue to add zeros to the end of our decimal place and continue the long division. But we got a remainder of 0, so we can stop. We know that 7/8, when we did the long division, is exactly 0.875. Now we've converted this fraction to a decimal, and it's really easy to convert that decimal into a percent. All you have to do to convert a decimal to a percent is move the decimal place 2 units to the right. So I moved the decimal 2 places to the right, and we have 87.5%. 7/8 is 87.5%. So why don't you try one of these on your own? How about 3/5? Why don't you try to convert 3/5 to a percent? Give it a shot and see how you do. All right, let's do it. Anytime you're converting a decimal or a fraction to a percent, what you do is write out the long division. So out here, out here you have a 5, and inside the dividend you have a 3, the numerator. You're not going to get very far by dividing 3 by 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some decimal places. That's legal. 3 is the exact same thing as 3.000, so it's a legal thing to do. And then we have to start doing long division. So let's see, we move our decimal place right above where it is in the dividend, and we just start to do long division. 5 goes into 36 times, multiply this thing out. Hey, we get a remainder of 0 right away. So we didn't need these other 2 zeros here. As soon as we get a remainder of 0, we know that we can stop this process. If you wanted to keep going, you could always add a 0. Bring the 0 down, and then continue the long division process, but you just get a bunch of zeros up here. So there's no need. We've converted 3/5 into a decimal, 0.6. Now to convert that decimal into a percent, it's really easy. We just move the decimal places, the decimal 2 places to the right. Move it 2 places to the right, we get 60, tack on a percent, and there's your answer, 60%. So another thing that we can do is we can change a percent to a fraction. And actually we did that already, didn't we? We did that all the way up here. Right off the bat we said 35% can be written as 35 over 100. That was converting a percent to a fraction. So let's talk about, say, 26%. We want to convert this to a fraction. Well, the way to convert a percent to a fraction is just put it over 100. 26% equals 26 over 100. But remember that whenever you get a fraction, you want to reduce at the lowest terms. So we need to reduce. So you look for numbers that you can divide evenly into both 26 and 100. So right off the bat you might see that 2 is possible, so let's do that and see what happens. 26 over 100 divided by 2 divided by 2. We did reduction of fractions in one of the previous videos, so check that one out if this part is confusing. 26 divided by 2 is 13, 100 divided by 2 is 50, and then you have to look at that and see if you can reduce that any further. It doesn't look to me like you can, so your answer is 13 over 50. So 26% can be written as a fraction, and that fraction, in its most reduced form, is 13 over 50. Alright, so next time, in the next video, we're going to be talking about doing a couple of small word problems with percentages. And we're going to have a lot of fun, so come on back.